The Galactic Council chamber hummed with the collective breathing of a dozen alien species, each more ancient and technologically advanced than the last. At the center of the crystalline amphitheater, Admiral Zektar of the Void Hunters stood before the assembled representatives, his forearms gesturing dramatically as holographic displays showed the spiral arm of the galaxy they called the Outer Rim. Honored council members, Zektar's voice resonated through the universal translators. I present to you the perfect target for our next harvesting operation. The hologram zoomed in on a small yellow star with 9 planets orbiting it. The Sol System. Third planet from the star, designation Earth. Counselor Velnath, an ancient being whose crystalline body had witnessed the rise and fall of 100 civilizations, leaned forward with interest. Her species, the Ethereals, had been spacefaring for over 50,000 Earth years. Show us the inhabitants, Admiral. The hologram shifted to display images of humans going about their daily lives. Humans walking to work, playing with children, farming fields, building simple structures. The assembled aliens watched with what could only be described as amusement. Bipedal mammals, Zektar continued, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. No significant space travel capability. Their fastest vessels barely reach their own moon. They fight among themselves constantly, over 200 separate political entities on one small planet. Most tellingly, they have only recently discovered how to split atoms, and they've immediately turned that knowledge into weapons they use against their own kind. High Admiral Korax of the Dominion Battle Fleet, whose species had conquered 17 star systems in the past millennium, let out a rumbling laugh that shook the chamber floor. They sound absolutely primitive. What could they possibly offer us besides entertainment? Their planet is remarkably resource-rich, Zektar explained as the hologram displayed Earth's geological composition. Abundant fresh water, diverse biological matter suitable for our genetic banks, and mineral deposits that would supply our fleets for centuries. The planet sits in an ideal location for establishing a forward operating base in this sector. The display showed Earth's continents, its vast oceans gleaming blue, its polar ice caps sparkling white. It looked peaceful, innocent, completely undefended against the technological might of the galaxy's apex predators. Counselor Thexhai of the Hive Mind Collective spoke up, his voice a harmony of multiple tones as his species always spoke in unison. What about their military capabilities? Even primitive species sometimes surprise us with unexpected resistance. Zektar's 4 eyes gleamed with predatory confidence. We've been observing them for 3 of their years. Their weapons are laughably primitive: chemical explosives, kinetic projectiles, and crude nuclear devices that they can barely control. Their largest military vessels are floating metal platforms that traverse their oceans. They have no orbital defenses, no energy shields, no plasma weaponry. A single Void Hunter destroyer could eliminate their entire military within hours. The Admiral activated another display showing human military equipment. Tanks that looked like metal boxes with primitive cannons, aircraft that required burning chemical fuel to achieve flight, and soldiers carrying small projectile weapons that wouldn't scratch the armor of a Galactic Council security guard. Look at this, Zektar gestured to an image of an aircraft carrier, humanity's most powerful military vessel. This represents their pinnacle of military engineering. It carries flying machines that achieve thrust by consuming refined petroleum products. The entire vessel would be destroyed by a single blast from our light reconnaissance drones. Ancient Counselor Mordugal of the Star Destroyers, whose race had personally exterminated 43 civilizations, nodded approvingly. His species measured their worth by the number of worlds they had rendered lifeless. Their technology appears to be roughly 10,000 years behind our most primitive client races. How do they compare to the Zelani we conquered last century? The Zelani at least had fusion technology and asteroid mining operations, Zektar replied dismissively. These humans still burn fossil fuels for energy and haven't even established permanent settlements on their own moon. They're barely above the Stone Age by galactic standards. Counselor Velnath activated her personal display, reviewing the intelligence data with the thoroughness that had kept her species alive for millennia. What about their social structure? Unified species sometimes mount more effective resistance than fractured ones. Completely fragmented, Zektar replied with evident satisfaction. They maintain over 200 separate nations, each with its own military, laws, and leadership. They've fought thousands of wars among themselves just in the past century. They currently maintain several active conflicts and countless territorial disputes. When we arrive, they'll likely spend more time arguing about how to respond than actually responding. The hologram showed a map of Earth with different colored regions representing various nations, many sharing borders that looked like they had been drawn during conflicts. Historical footage played showing human armies fighting each other with their primitive weapons, cities burning, refugees fleeing across borders. Perfect, rumbled Admiral Corax. Divided prey is easy prey. Our standard protocol of demanding surrender from their leadership should result in immediate capitulation. Any species this fragmented lacks the unity necessary for coordinated resistance. Strategist Quindal of the Shadow Fleet, whose species specialized in psychological warfare, studied the human behavioral patterns with professional interest. What about their mental resilience? Some primitive species compensate for technological weakness with irrational determination. We've analyzed millions of hours of their communications and entertainment media, Zektar explained. They appear to be remarkably soft by galactic standards. They spend enormous resources on comfort and entertainment rather than military preparation. Their popular culture glorifies individual heroism and emotional decision-making over logical strategic thinking. They even maintain ethical restrictions on warfare. They have laws prohibiting certain weapons and tactics even during existential conflicts. The display showed humans engaging in various leisure activities, sports, music, art, families gathering for meals. It painted a picture of a species more concerned with comfort than conquest, more interested in entertainment than expansion. High Counselor Zephyr, the eldest member whose species had observed the rise of galactic civilization itself, spoke in his ancient, measured tone. Admiral Zektar, walk us through your proposed operation timeline. Phase 1, Zektar began as the hologram shifted to show fleet movements. Will position the 7th Harvest Fleet at the edge of their system, 10 destroyers, 3 battlecruisers, and the flagship Endless Hunger. Given their primitive detection capabilities, they won't notice our arrival until we're practically in orbit around their planet. Phase 2 will demonstrate our technological superiority by disabling their few orbital satellites and conducting precision strikes on their major military installations. This should eliminate any possibility of organized resistance while minimizing damage to valuable infrastructure. Phase 3 will broadcast surrender demands to their major population centers simultaneously. Historical data suggests that primitive species typically surrender within days when faced with overwhelming technological superiority and the destruction of their military capabilities. Phase 4 will begin systematic resource extraction and population management. The humans can be relocated to designated areas while we strip mine their planet's resources. Those with useful genetic traits or skills can be preserved for our research divisions. Counselor Thexhi's harmonious voice carried a note of caution. What contingencies have you planned if they prove more resilient than anticipated? Zektar's mandibles clicked with amusement. Honored Counselor, based on our analysis, the probability of significant human resistance lasting more than one of their weeks approaches 0. However, if they prove stubborn, we can always demonstrate the consequences of defiance by sterilizing one of their major population centers. After witnessing the obliteration of a few million of their kind, the survivors will become much more cooperative. The hologram showed major Earth cities, New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, each containing millions of humans going about their daily lives, completely unaware that their existence was being casually discussed as a potential object lesson in galactic politics. The beauty of this operation, Zektar continued, is that it requires minimal resources for maximum gain. We're essentially harvesting an undefended garden. The humans have done all the work of developing their planet's resources and infrastructure, we simply need to take possession. Admiral Corax stood up, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. When do we begin? My fleet commanders grow restless, and it's been too long since we've added a new trophy to the Dominion's collection. I propose we begin immediately, Zektar replied. The humans appear to be on the verge of more advanced space travel. Within a few centuries they might develop capabilities that would complicate our operations. Better to harvest them now while they remain helpless. Ancient Counselor Mordugal activated his voting crystal. A soft target with maximum resources and minimal risk. This operation has my full support. One by one, the council members activated their voting crystals. The chamber filled with light as each species cast their vote in favor of the harvest operation. Only Councillor Velnath hesitated, her crystalline form flickering as she processed thousands of variables simultaneously.
Something troubles you, Honored Velnath? High Councillor Zephyr inquired.
It's probably nothing, she replied slowly. But, in 50,000 years of observing galactic civilizations, I've learned that species capable of developing nuclear technology while maintaining large-scale agriculture and global communications shouldn't be dismissed entirely. There may be hidden depths to these humans that our standard analysis has missed. Zektar's four eyes rolled with barely concealed impatience.
With respect, honored counselor, even if they possess some hidden capabilities, what could they possibly do against technology that's millennia ahead of their own?
Our shields alone are impervious to anything they could conceivably produce. You're undoubtedly correct, Velnath conceded, activating her voting crystal to complete the unanimous decision.
Sometimes experience makes one overly cautious. High Councillor Zephyr stood as the voting concluded.
Admiral Zektar, you have the full authorization of the Galactic Council to proceed with harvest operations against the human species of Earth. May this operation add another successful chapter to the annals of galactic expansion. As the council session ended and the representatives began to disperse, none of them noticed the small monitoring probe that had been observing their gathering from the shadows of the chamber's upper reaches. The probe's advanced cloaking technology made it invisible to even the council's sophisticated detection systems. Dr. Sarah Chen, humanity's first successful deep space reconnaissance specialist, sat in her cramped monitoring station buried 3 miles beneath the surface of Luna, Earth's moon. Her hands trembled slightly as she ended the quantum entanglement communication link that had allowed her probe to observe the Galactic Council session in real time. For the past 5 years, Sarah had been part of humanity's most classified project, Project Looking Glass. While the world's governments publicly squabbled over territories and trade agreements, a small group of the most brilliant scientists from every nation had been working in absolute secrecy to develop technology that would allow humanity to observe potential threats from beyond Earth. They had always assumed that if hostile aliens existed, humanity would at least get some warning before an attack. They had never imagined that their first contact with galactic civilization would be listening to their own extinction being planned with casual efficiency. Sarah activated her emergency communication array, sending coded signals to receivers hidden in every major capital on Earth.
Within minutes, the leaders of every human nation would receive an identical message: they're coming. Operation Sleeping Giant is now active.
This is not a drill. For a species that had just been dismissed as primitive and helpless, humanity was about to demonstrate that appearances could be remarkably deceiving. Project Looking Glass had been just the beginning. Operation Sleeping Giant was about to show the galaxy that Earth had never been the easy prey it appeared to be. But, first, Admiral Zektar and his 7th Harvest Fleet would need to arrive, confident in their overwhelming superiority and completely unprepared for what humanity had been quietly developing in the shadows for the past decade. As Sarah began transmitting detailed intelligence about Galactic Council technology and tactics to governments across Earth, she allowed herself a small smile.
The aliens had made one critical error in their assessment.
They had assumed that a species capable of reaching their own moon but choosing not to expand further must lack ambition and technological capability. They had never considered the possibility that humanity had been watching them first. Admiral Zektar stood on the bridge of the endless hunger, watching the third planet of the Sol system grow larger on his viewscreen. The blue marble looked exactly as pathetic and defenseless as their intelligence had indicated. No orbital defense platforms, no energy barriers, no signs of advanced technology anywhere in the system.
Admiral, his weapons officer reported, we're detecting some primitive electromagnetic transmissions from the planet's surface.
It appears they've noticed our arrival. Of course they have, Zektar replied smugly.
Even their crude technology should be able to detect ships of this size once we're within their inner system. What kind of responses are we seeing?
Increased radio chatter between their population centers. Some of their atmospheric aircraft have launched, but they're maintaining distance. No aggressive actions detected. Their largest military vessels are moving, but at laughably slow speeds. Zektar activated his personal display to review the human responses in real time.
aircraft that looked like metal insects buzzing around their planet's atmosphere. Ships that moved across their oceans like floating metal boxes. All of it exactly matching their intelligence reports. "Sir," the communications officer announced, "we're receiving transmission attempts from the planet on multiple frequencies. They appear to be trying to establish communication." "How delightfully naive," Zektar chuckled. "They probably want to welcome us or negotiate." "Very well, let them speak. It will make the surrender demands more impactful when they understand how completely outmatched they are." The main view screen activated, showing what appeared to be a hastily assembled group of humans sitting around a table. The beings looked remarkably similar to each other despite supposedly representing different nations, all bipedal, all with the same basic facial structure, all looking nervous and uncertain. "This is Secretary General Martinez of the United Earth Coalition," the apparent leader spoke in what the translator identified as the human language called English. "We welcome you to our system and hope to establish peaceful relations with your people." Behind Martinez sat representatives from various human nations, each looking exactly as frightened and helpless as Zektar had expected. These weren't warriors or strategists, they were bureaucrats hoping to negotiate their way out of annihilation. "Humans of Earth," Zektar responded, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of dominance. "I am Admiral Zektar of the Galactic Council's 7th Harvest Fleet. Your species has been selected for resource extraction and planetary development. You have one of your days to surrender unconditionally and accept relocation to designated areas. Resistance will result in the complete sterilization of your population centers." The humans on the screen looked appropriately terrified. Several began speaking rapidly to each other in different languages while Martinez held up his hands for calm. "Admiral Zektar," Martinez replied carefully, "we understand that your technology is far advanced beyond ours. We're prepared to discuss terms for peaceful coexistence. Surely there's no need for violence when we can reach a mutually beneficial arrangement." "There are no terms," Zektar replied coldly. "Your species will comply with Galactic Council harvesting protocols or face immediate extinction. You have 24 of your hours to broadcast your surrender on all frequencies and begin population relocation procedures." The transmission ended with the humans looking appropriately defeated. Zektar turned to his tactical officer with satisfaction. "Maintain position at the edge of their lunar orbit. Begin charging our main weapons as a demonstration of our capabilities. Target one of their uninhabited landmasses for a precision strike in 12 hours if we haven't received their surrender." "Yes, sir." "Shall we begin deploying reconnaissance drones to map their major population centers?" "Standard protocol," Zektar confirmed. "Though I doubt we'll need detailed intelligence. These primitives will surrender long before we need to demonstrate serious force." What Admiral Zektar didn't know was that the hastily assembled United Earth Coalition he had just spoken with was exactly what it appeared to be, a group of terrified diplomats with no real authority. The actual leaders of humanity's military forces were currently 3 miles beneath the surface of Cheyenne Mountain, implementing a plan that had been decades in development. General Patricia Wells, Supreme Commander of Operation Sleeping Giant, stood before the largest gathering of military leadership in human history. Representatives from every major nation sat around the massive circular table, but, for the first time in human history, they weren't arguing. "Ladies and gentlemen," General Wells began, "the aliens have given us 24 hours to surrender. They're currently positioned at lunar orbit, well within range of our primary assets. Dr. Chen, report on enemy capabilities." Dr. Sarah Chen activated her holographic display, showing detailed scans of the alien fleet that her hidden probes had been conducting for the past 8 hours. 14 vessels total. 10 destroyers approximately 800 meters in length, 3 battle cruisers at roughly 2 kilometers, and 1 flagship measuring over 4 kilometers. Based on energy output analysis, their weapons are plasma-based with approximately 10,000 times the destructive capability of our most powerful nuclear weapons. Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembled leaders. General Volkov of the Russian Federation leaned forward grimly. "So we're as outmatched as they believe?" "In terms of raw firepower and technology, absolutely," Dr. Chin confirmed. "However, our analysis has revealed several critical vulnerabilities in their tactical approach." General Wells took control of the display, highlighting key aspects of the alien fleet deployment. First, they're maintaining a standard orbital position that prioritizes visual intimidation over defensive positioning.
Second, their ships are clustered together in a formation that maximizes their psychological impact but creates tactical vulnerabilities.
Third, and most importantly, they've made the classic mistake of every bully throughout human history.
Which is, asked Admiral Thompson of the United States Navy. They've underestimated us so completely that they've stopped thinking of us as a threat, General Wells replied with a cold smile.
They're not even maintaining basic defensive protocols.
Their shields are down, their point defense systems are offline, and they're broadcasting on unencrypted frequencies. They're treating this as a simple intimidation exercise, not a military operation. Colonel Kim of the South Korean military activated her section of the display.
Operation Sleeping Giant has been active for 11 years, ever since Dr. Chen's team first detected evidence of alien surveillance of Earth.
During that time, we've prepared for exactly this scenario. The holographic display shifted to show what appeared to be empty space around Earth's moon. The aliens scanned for orbital defense platforms and found none, because our platforms use technology they don't recognize as military hardware. Dr. Chen manipulated the display to reveal dozens of structures that had been invisible moments before. Cloaked mining stations, research satellites, and communication relays.
Except they're not actually mining stations or research satellites. The structures uncloaked in the hologram, revealing sleek, angular weapons platforms bristling with devices that looked nothing like conventional human technology. We've had 11 years to reverse engineer alien technology from their surveillance probes. Every piece of space junk they've ignored, every commercial satellite they've dismissed, every defunct space station we've abandoned has been secretly converted into a weapons platform using their own technology turned against them. General Petrov of the Russian Space Command stood up, his weathered face grim with determination. The Sleeping Giant network consists of 47 hidden weapons platforms, each armed with reverse-engineered plasma cannons and kinetic bombardment systems. We've been building them inside existing structures and launching them disguised as civilian missions for over a decade. What about their shields and armor? Asked General Martinez of Spain. That's the beauty of reverse engineering their technology, Dr. Chen explained with evident satisfaction. Their shields are designed to stop attacks from known galactic weapons. They're not calibrated to defend against their own technology being used in ways they never considered. General Wells activated another display showing human military forces across Earth.
But, instead of the primitive equipment the aliens had observed, the display showed weapons and vehicles that looked like they belonged in science fiction movies. While the aliens were analyzing our conventional forces and dismissing them as primitive, we've been secretly developing parallel military technology based on their own science. Hidden underground facilities on every continent have been producing weapons, vehicles, and defensive systems that incorporate alien technology with human engineering improvements. The display showed sleek aircraft that bore no resemblance to conventional jets, ground vehicles that seemed to hover without visible means of propulsion, and soldiers carrying weapons that crackled with energy instead of firing bullets. For 11 years, we've maintained the illusion of a primitive, divided species while secretly preparing for exactly this moment, General Wells continued. Every public military display, every news report about our weapons, every international conflict they observed was carefully managed theater designed to maintain their false assumptions about our capabilities.
Dr. Chen brought up tactical projections showing the alien fleet's current position overlaid with the hidden Sleeping Giant platforms. The enemy fleet is currently positioned in the worst possible location from a defensive standpoint.
They're surrounded by our hidden platforms, within range of our surface-to-space weapons, and completely unaware that they're sitting in the middle of a carefully prepared kill zone.
What about their technological superiority? Asked Admiral Zhao of the Chinese Navy.
Even with their technology, they have thousands of years of experience we lack. Experience can become a weakness when it leads to overconfidence, General Wells replied.
They're so convinced of their superiority that they've stopped adapting their tactics.
They've used the same harvest protocol on dozens of worlds, and it's worked every time against genuinely primitive species. They have no experience fighting an enemy that appears primitive but has been studying their methods for years. General Thompson reviewed the tactical data with professional appreciation. So we've essentially been setting up the perfect ambush for over a decade.
Exactly. But, more than that, we've been learning to think like them while letting them believe we think like primitives.
Every analysis they've conducted has told them we're emotional, irrational, and incapable of unified action. They have no idea that every major human military leader has been secretly cooperating for 11 years specifically to prepare for this moment.
The room fell silent as the implications sank in.
For the first time in human history, every military force on Earth was working together with perfect coordination toward a single goal. The species that the aliens had dismissed as hopelessly fragmented had achieved unity by having a common enemy. The plan is simple, General Wells explained. In 18 hours, we'll broadcast our surrender and begin apparent compliance with their relocation demands. This will position their fleet exactly where we want them while lowering their guard even further. Once they begin deployment for planetary landing operations, we'll activate Sleeping Giant. What's our projected success probability? Asked General Volkov. Dr. Chen ran her calculations one final time. Based on current positioning, fleet composition, and their demonstrated overconfidence, we have an 87% probability of destroying or disabling their entire fleet before they can mount an effective response.
And if we fail? Asked Colonel Kim.
Then, humanity dies fighting instead of dying on our knees, General Wells replied simply.
But we won't fail. For 11 years, we've had the luxury of preparing for an enemy that doesn't know we're preparing. That kind of advantage doesn't come along often in military history.
As the meeting dispersed, each military leader returning to their hidden command centers to oversee the final preparations, Dr. Chen remained behind with General Wells.
Sarah, the general said quietly, I need to ask you directly. Are we making the right choice?
If we're wrong about their capabilities or our own, we could be dooming our entire species instead of just becoming their slaves.
Dr. Chen looked at the tactical display still showing the alien fleet confidently maintaining position in their kill zone.
General, I've spent 5 years listening to their communications and watching their methods.
They don't enslave species, they harvest them. The relocation they're offering is to process us for biological material and strip mine our planet until it's a dead rock. We're not choosing between freedom and slavery. We're choosing between fighting and extinction.
Then, let's give them a fight they'll never forget, General Wells replied grimly. It's time to show the galaxy that Earth was never easy prey, we were just waiting for the right moment to prove it. Above them, Admiral Zektar continued to wait confidently for humanity's surrender, completely unaware that he had just positioned his fleet in the middle of the most sophisticated military trap in human history. The hunter had become the hunted, and he didn't even know the roles had changed.
20 hours after first contact, Secretary General Martinez appeared once again on screens throughout Admiral Zektar's fleet.
The human leader looked appropriately defeated, his shoulders slumped, his voice carrying the resignation that Zektar had heard from dozens of species before their surrender. Admiral Zektar, Martinez began hesitantly, the governments of Earth have voted to accept your terms. We will begin relocation procedures immediately and comply with all Galactic Council protocols. We ask only that you show mercy to our civilian populations during the transition. Zektar's mandibles clicked with satisfaction.
A wise decision, human.
Begin immediately moving your populations away from major cities and industrial centers. Our landing forces will arrive in 6 hours to oversee the process.
Any attempt to hide weapons or technology will result in immediate retaliation. We understand, Martinez replied. Our military forces have been ordered to stand down.
We'll transmit the locations of all our weapons facilities and government installations for your inspection. The transmission ended, and Zektar turned to his officers with the confidence of someone who had orchestrated dozens of successful harvests.
Begin deployment procedures.
I want the third battlecruiser and, for destroyers to maintain orbital position while the rest of the fleet moves to atmospheric entry positions. Start with their major population centers, New York, London, Beijing, Moscow.
The usual intimidation pattern.
As the endless hunger began its descent toward Earth's atmosphere, followed by the designated landing fleet, Admiral Zektar reviewed the intelligence reports with satisfaction. Human military forces were indeed standing down. Aircraft returning to bases, ships moving away from coastlines, ground forces withdrawing from defensive positions. Sir, his sensor officer reported, we're detecting some unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface, but they appear to be consistent with the humans shutting down their primitive power systems as ordered.
Very good.
maintain full sensor sweeps during descent.
Even though these primitives pose no real threat, we should follow proper protocols. What the alien sensors were actually detecting was the activation sequence of humanity's hidden weapons grid.
Across the Earth, power was being rerouted from civilian systems to military installations that had been buried so deep and shielded so completely that alien surveillance had never detected them.
Deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, General Wells watched the alien fleet begin its descent with cold satisfaction. They're following the exact pattern our analysis predicted. Dr. Chen confirmed that all sleeping giant platforms are in position.
All platforms active and ready, Dr. Chen confirmed from her station.
The descending alien ships will be within optimal firing range in 14 minutes.
The orbital ships are maintaining position exactly where our projections indicated they would.
General Wells opened communications with military leaders across the globe.
All units, this is Sleeping Giant Command.
Hostile fleet has entered terminal deployment phase. Execute Operation Sleeping Giant in 10 minutes on my mark.
Remember, we get one chance at this.
Make it count.
Across the Earth, in hidden facilities that had been constructed over 11 years of secret preparation, humanity's true military might begin to awaken. In the Sahara Desert, sand dunes split open to reveal massive railgun installations.
In the ocean depths, what appeared to be underwater research stations transformed into weapons platforms armed with reverse-engineered alien plasma cannons.
On the dark side of the moon, mining equipment shed its civilian disguise to become orbital bombardment systems.
Admiral Zektar was reviewing landing zone assignments when his sensor officer suddenly stiffened at his console. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy buildups across the planet's surface. These readings, they don't match any known primitive technology.
Elaborate, Zektar demanded, a hint of unease creeping into his voice. Sir, the energy signatures are consistent with our own plasma technology.
But, that's impossible. Intelligence confirmed these beings have no knowledge of plasma manipulation.
Zektar moved to the sensor console personally, his four eyes widening as he studied the readings. Energy patterns that looked remarkably similar to Galactic Council weapon systems were appearing all across Earth's surface and throughout the space around the planet. Sir, the communications officer announced urgently, we're receiving a transmission from the planet.
It's not from the same human group as before.
The main view screen activated, but, instead of the defeated diplomats they had been dealing with, it showed a human female in what appeared to be military attire, surrounded by sophisticated technology that definitely didn't look primitive. Admiral Zektar, General Wells spoke with calm authority, my name is General Patricia Wells, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces. I'm afraid Secretary General Martinez was not entirely truthful with you earlier. Zektar stared at the screen in growing alarm. Behind the human female, he could see displays showing detailed scans of his own fleet, tactical information that should have been impossible for primitives to obtain, and what appeared to be countdown timers approaching zero. Your intelligence assessment was partially correct, General Wells continued conversationally.
Humanity is indeed a young species with limited space travel capability.
However, you made several critical errors in your analysis. This is impossible, Zektar muttered, but his tactical training was already screaming warnings as he recognized the technology visible in the background of the transmission. Error number 1, General Wells explained calmly, you assumed that a species capable of developing nuclear technology while maintaining large-scale civilization was primitive. You never considered that we might have been deliberately limiting our expansion to avoid attracting attention while we prepared for exactly this scenario.
Admiral Zektar spun toward his tactical officer. Evasive maneuvers. Raise shields. All weapons to maximum charge.
But, General Wells was still speaking, her voice cutting through the alarms that had begun sounding throughout the alien flagship. Error number 2, you assumed that our satellite network consisted of primitive communication devices. In reality, every piece of orbital infrastructure you dismissed as harmless has been a weapons platform in disguise for the past 7 years.
Suddenly, space around the alien fleet erupted in brilliant flashes of plasma fire.
What had appeared to be defunct satellites, abandoned space stations, and mining equipment revealed themselves as sophisticated weapons platforms, each armed with technology that matched or exceeded the aliens' own capabilities. Error number 3, General Wells continued. As the alien ships found themselves under attack from all directions, you assumed that a fragmented species couldn't coordinate effectively. You never considered that the existence of a common enemy might unify us in ways that nothing else could. The alien destroyers were taking heavy fire from multiple directions. Their shields, designed to handle attacks from conventional galactic weapons, flickered and failed under bombardment from their own technology used in configurations their designers had never anticipated.
Impossible! Admiral Zektar roared as his flagship shuddered under impact. How do they have our technology?
Error number 4, General Wells replied, somehow still appearing calm despite the battle raging around her. You've been monitoring us for years without realizing we've been monitoring you.
Every probe you sent to study us, we captured and reverse-engineered.
Every surveillance device you placed in our system, we located and studied. You taught us everything we needed to know about your technology while believing we were too primitive to understand it.
3 of the alien destroyers were already disabled, their crews evacuating in escape pods as their ships became drifting hulks.
The battle cruisers were faring better due to heavier armor and shields, but they were still taking damage from weapons that shouldn't exist.
Admiral Zektar activated fleet communications. All ships, emergency retreat to hyperspace. Abort harvest operation immediately.
Error number 5, General Wells said, her calm demeanor finally cracking to reveal the steel underneath. You assumed we would fight like every other species you've encountered.
But humans don't surrender, Admiral. When we're threatened with extinction, we don't just fight back, we make sure our enemies regret ever finding us. As the alien fleet attempted to retreat, they discovered the final surprise waiting for them.
The space around Earth's moon erupted with weapons fire as hidden installations that had been camouflaged as mining operations revealed their true nature. The aliens' escape route was blocked by a coordinated grid of defensive positions that had been 11 years in the making. This is General Wells to all human forces, she broadcast on open frequencies so the aliens could hear.
Operation Sleeping Giant is now fully active. Show these invaders what happens when you underestimate humanity. The battle was unlike anything in recorded galactic history.
Instead of facing a primitive species with crude weapons, the aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that had spent over a decade studying their tactics, reverse engineering their technology, and preparing specifically for this moment. Every assumption they had made about human capabilities was being proven catastrophically wrong. 2 more destroyers were destroyed outright, their crews having no time to evacuate before their ships exploded in brilliant plasma fires. The battle cruisers were falling back toward the edges of the solar system, but hidden weapons platforms continued to appear from concealment to harry their retreat.
Admiral Zektar stood on his bridge, watching his fleet being systematically dismantled by an enemy that was supposed to have surrendered without firing a shot. How, he demanded of the universe. How is this possible? Would you like to know the truth, Admiral?
General Wells asked from the viewscreen.
The truth is that you've been fighting the wrong war from the very beginning. What do you mean?
You came here to harvest resources from a primitive world, General Wells explained as the battle continued to rage around them. But, you never asked yourself why a species capable of developing nuclear technology and global communications would choose to remain confined to a single planet. You assumed we lacked the capability to expand when the truth is much simpler. We were waiting.
Waiting for what?
Waiting for someone like you to show us where the rest of the galaxy was, General Wells replied with a smile that was anything but friendly.
You see, Admiral, we never intended to be anyone's victims. We've been preparing to become something much more dangerous. The remaining alien ships were now in full retreat, but their casualties had been devastating.
Of the 14 ships that had arrived confident in their technological superiority, only 6 remained operational, and all of those were damaged.
Admiral Zektar stared at his tactical display in horrified realization. You're not defending your world. This was all a trap. The greatest trap in human history, General Wells confirmed.
We let you think Earth was an easy target specifically so you would bring your technology within range of our hidden weapons. Every ship you lose here makes us stronger. As if to emphasize her point, human salvage teams were already moving toward the disabled alien vessels, preparing to recover intact technology and capture survivors for interrogation. But now we have a problem, Admiral, General Wells continued.
You've seen our capabilities, which means you can report them to your Galactic Council. We can't allow that intelligence to reach the wider galaxy before we're ready to deal with the consequences. Admiral Zektar's remaining ships had finally reached the edge of the solar system, but, instead of the safety of open space, they found more human weapons platforms waiting for them. The trap had been even more comprehensive than he had realized. I'm prepared to offer you a choice, General Wells said. Option 1: you and your surviving crews surrender now. You'll be treated according to the laws of war, given medical attention for your wounded, and eventually repatriated to your own people. In exchange, you'll agree to report to your council that Earth's defenses proved more formidable than expected and that harvest operations should be postponed indefinitely. And option 2? Option 2 is that we disable the rest of your ships, capture your survivors anyway, and tell your council ourselves when we're ready to make our introduction to galactic civilization. But, if we have to do that, the introduction will be somewhat less diplomatic than it might otherwise be. Admiral Zektar looked around his bridge at his surviving crew members. Young officers who had followed him into what was supposed to be a simple harvest operation against a defenseless species. They were looking at him for guidance, trusting him to get them home alive. The truth was inescapable. They had been completely outmaneuvered by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Not only had the humans been prepared for their arrival, they had turned the entire invasion into an elaborate trap designed to capture alien technology and demonstrate their hidden capabilities. Admiral, his tactical officer reported quietly, our weapons are depleted, our shields are failing, and we're still taking fire from multiple directions. We don't have the capability to fight our way out. Zektar closed his 4 eyes and made the hardest decision of his military career. General Wells, I accept your terms. The surviving ships of the 7th Harvest Fleet surrender to Earth's defense forces. A wise decision, Admiral, General Wells replied. Please instruct your ships to power down their weapons and maintain current positions. Our recovery teams will assist with medical attention for your wounded and repairs to your life support systems. As the alien ships shut down their weapons and settled into orbit around Earth, Admiral Zektar realized that the galaxy was about to change in ways that no one in the Council had anticipated. They had come to harvest a primitive world and had instead awakened something that might reshape the balance of power among the stars. General Wells, he said heavily, what happens now? Now, Admiral, humanity begins the next phase of our development, she replied. We've spent 11 years learning about galactic civilization from your surveillance probes and monitoring devices. We know about the Council, the various species, the territorial disputes, and the power structures that govern interstellar politics. You've been planning this for 11 years? We've been planning for much longer than that, General Wells corrected. Humans have always known that we couldn't be alone in the universe. We've been preparing for first contact since we first looked up at the stars. The only question was whether that contact would be peaceful or hostile. You answered that question for us. Admiral Zektar slumped in his command chair as the full implications hit him. The Council will never allow this. Once they learn what happened here, they'll send the entire fleet to eliminate Earth before you can become a threat to galactic stability. Let them come, General Wells replied with quiet confidence. By the time they arrive, we'll be ready for them too. You see, Admiral, you've just given us the most valuable thing in the universe, time and technology. Your ships, your databases, your star charts, your technology. Everything we need to take our place among the stars. But, you'll be facing the entire Galactic Council. Hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships, millions of years of technological advancement. General Wells smiled again, and this time there was something in that expression that reminded Admiral Zektar of the ancient predators from his homeworld. Admiral, you still don't understand what you're dealing with. Humans don't just fight to survive. When we're threatened, we fight to win. And, when we win, we make sure the threat can never return. The Council has been harvesting species for millennia because they've never encountered anything that could challenge their supremacy. But, they've never faced a species that was watching them, learning from them, and preparing to turn their own technology against them. As human ships moved to escort the surrendered alien vessels to secure orbital facilities, Admiral Zektar understood with crystal clarity that the galaxy was about to discover that Earth had never been easy prey.
Humanity had just been waiting for someone to make the mistake of threatening them. The hunter had indeed become the hunted, but the transformation was far from over.
Earth's defense had been just the beginning.
Now humanity was ready to show the galaxy what happened when a species unified by threat decided to reach for the stars.